Let's take a moment to look at energy consumption on a global scale. On a global scale, we see that energy use is increasing steadily across the globe, and certain areas are increasing more than others. So we see that the countries where we see the largest jump in energy consumption, China is the big one, and then India, we're also seeing a steady increase in energy consumption. The United States is fairly flat, as is Germany and Japan. And Russia's very slowly increasing, but mostly flat in recent years. And so we do see an increase, but it's interesting for me to note that, the United States is consuming slightly less energy than China, and actually more energy than India. But if you think of the populations of these countries, remember China has 4 times the number of people as the United States, and yet they're not consuming 4 times the energy of the United States. Similarly, India has 3.5 times the population of the United States, and they're consuming much less energy than the United States. And so if you compare on a per capita basis, the United States is still consuming a lot of energy per person. And then this shows just kind of how it's changing over time if you total up all of the energy consumption from all of the countries. So this is the same data that we see on this graph. It's just this is an additive approach where it's looking at how much each region is consuming compared to others. I like this chart as well because it talks about the fuel use by world region and which regions are consuming which type of fuel source. And so let's just go through some of these questions. Which regions are using the most coal? So coal is this dark brown or black band. And you can see Asia is the one that is the area that's consuming the most coal. And Africa, percent-wise, also is consuming a fair amount, as is Eurasia. The most nuclear and renewables, so that's the green area. So percent-wise, Europe is doing a great job with renewables and consuming nuclear, as is Central and South America. And then, and then if we look at who's relying the most on petroleum, which is this light brown, it's not surprising to me to see that Central and South America and the Middle East tend to rely on this the most, and then Africa as well. And that's because these are areas where they have access to petroleum within their borders, and they're able to extract the oil and use it in their area. Over time, we are consuming more energy across the globe of all fuel types. We're consuming more petroleum, we're consuming more natural gas, we're consuming more nuclear and renewable energy. The only exception to this rule is coal, and the consumption of coal has gone down in recent years. It's on a downward trend. There are also projections. So the United States Energy Information Administration, they have a whole sector, a whole part of their organization that does projections of energy consumption in the future. And so this is looking at electricity consumption, and it's looking at it by the type of fuel that's being used to generate electricity, and then the consumers or the sectors that are consuming that electricity. And you can see that all of the sectors are predicted. So 2015 is when they took the measurement, and then all of these are projected amounts of energy that will be consumed by these sectors, and they're all expected to increase over the next 20 some years. And similarly, if we look at it by the source, we see that we expect to start using more renewables, we expect to be using less coal in the future, and then we expect to be using slightly more natural gas. And nuclear is staying fairly steady, if not decreasing. A lot of places aren't building any new nuclear power plants, and while they do last a long time, because we're not producing new ones and we are slowly having to shut down some of them, it is getting to be a slightly smaller sector across the globe. Also, from the projection, we see that just overall world energy consumption is expected to rise 28% from between the year 2015 and the year 2040. All of these projections assume that there will be a continual improvement in technology, and whether or not that's a good assumption, we'll have to wait and see. But this chart divides the world into two basic regions. One is what's called the non-OECD regions, and I honestly forget what that stands for. It's Opportunity for Economic something something. So I apologize for that. But these non-OECD countries include the countries in Asia, Middle East, parts of Africa, and then the OECD countries are the more developed countries, and that includes North America, so the United States, Canada, and Mexico, Europe, and then the United Kingdom. We see that more than 50% of the increase in global energy use will be occurring in the non-OECD Asian countries, so that would include China and India, and energy use in these countries will be more than that of all of the OECD countries combined by the year 2040. If we look across the globe, the largest consumer of energy is the industrial sector, and that's true now. So if we look at 2015, this orange bar is the industrial sector. They consume the most energy, and in 2040 we expect to see the same thing. And so we expect to see an increase in the non-OECD countries as they increase industrial production. And so that would include manufacturing, mining, agriculture. All of those things are considered to be industrial.